Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Global Learning Forum on safe travel during a global pandemic. We're really excited to have some special guests here. In a few minutes, I'm going to introduce all the way from Grantham in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Dr. Holly Carter, who is the director of the Harlaxton program in England that is very popular with our Western Kentucky students and many others from around the country. I'm also going to be joined by my colleague, Diana Howard, who is one of our staff members who works very, very hard to organize Western Kentucky faculty-led programs. But first, I want to just take a minute to talk about where we are. A year ago, our study abroad office started asking our students who were studying on our Chinese language flagship program to return to Bowling Green. And we'd become aware of an outbreak that had quickly spread from Wuhan throughout China, and we're very concerned about the safety of our students. We had a very well structured emergency evacuation policy. Little did we know that within 2 weeks, we would be asking every WKU student who's studying any place on the planet to return home. We certainly weren't prepared for that. Preparation is the most important thing one can do when one is going to travel anywhere, whether it is, to another state or outside the United States. Being prepared, being ready, having a plan. What am I going to do if? And so we'll talk a little bit about some of that. I also want to talk specifically about some of the things that we need to think about when we're traveling. The natural assumption is that wherever we are is safe, and wherever we are going to go may not be as safe. It's less known. In this instance, in the United States, that very, very, very sadly has seen over 500,000 people die of COVID. We represent 20% of the deaths of this pandemic, but only about 5% of the world's population. So actually, the United States is the place that many countries are concerned about, people coming from the United States. So we need to be aware of that. We need to be thinking about vaccinations. We need to be thinking about travel, what happens when you're on an airplane, what happens when you're going through an airport, what happens when you land. Am I going to be in quarantine? And am I going to be held in a certain part of the airport until I can produce a test? Do I need to have a test before I go? Do I need to have a test when I arrive? What are the different things that are going to happen to me throughout my journey before I get to where I finally arrive? These are questions that we never had to ask a year ago, but that we have to ask now. And frankly, we're probably going to be asking them for some time in the future. So I'd like to invite my colleague, Holly Carter, to talk to us a little bit about what's going on in Harlaxton. Look at that. Is Harlaxton not magnificent? I'd like to introduce Holly and then invite her to talk a little bit about Harlaxton and what's going on at Harlaxton in the UK. And then we could talk about some of the things that I've mentioned. We'll bring in, later, we'll bring in Diana to talk about faculty-led programs. I invite everyone who's watching throughout this process to please ask a question and we'll do our very best to answer it. So without any further ado, I'd love to switch over, fly virtually to Grantham without all the mess that goes along with it, and land at Harlaxton Manor with Holly Carter.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk a little bit about how we're doing here in the UK and how we're doing specifically at Harlaxton. First of all, welcome to the Great Hall. So this is not a virtual background. This is the room I'm standing in at the moment. So this is a room that we use for many things, our convocations, our valedictory, lots of Kaylee's, costume balls. So a place that you would know really well if you get the chance to come to the manor, which we invite all of you to do. So, just speaking a little bit about the situation in the UK, just with COVID and the way that the UK has dealt with it. So, we are now on our third national lockdown. This one, we have been in lockdown since January 4th. And what does lockdown mean for us here? So, lockdown means that we are allowed outside of our home 1 hour a day to exercise. We are not allowed to exercise outdoors or be indoors with any other person who's outside of our bubble. We are allowed to do essential shopping. And you are really asked to do it alone. So grocery stores are still open, gas stations are open, and a few other places are open, veterinary clinics and things like that. So essentials are open. All other shops are closed and have been since January 4th. So in the UK, we just last night had a briefing from our Prime Minister here, Boris Johnson, and he explained to us our roadmap out of lockdown. So the first thing that will happen on March 8th is that students will go back to school. So students have been out of school since January as well. All schools are like gated and closed. And so students are the first to return, including university students. They haven't been in classes either since the start of the term. And then after that, it works in stages. So it's 5 weeks apart, everything that's happening. So we start the first stage. In that stage, you're allowed to meet one other person for exercise outside. So that would be a change for us on March 8th. And then 5 weeks after that, we get the next change. And 5 weeks after that, we get the next change. At any point, if the data isn't going our way, um, we will stop and have a longer period in that stage or go backwards. So we are expecting May 17th is the day for all of us to look forward to have something that we would consider more normal. So restaurants are closed, pubs are closed, all non-essential shops are closed. You cannot go buy clothing, you cannot go buy electronics, everything is closed here. And it's pretty closely watched actually by the police as well. In terms of vaccinations, the way it works here is we have national vaccination centers, and everyone's invited through their general practitioner to go at a certain time. So we have priority groups. So the priority group started with age and then came down to people with significant conditions. So the first 4 priority groups were all vaccinated ahead of schedule, just about I think it was Valentine's Day or the day before. And so that was a huge celebration here in the country, knowing that that target had been met. And now we continue on with a goal of everyone over 50 being vaccinated by April 15th. And then moving on from there, everyone in the country being vaccinated by early July. It's a very orderly process. Everyone gets their letter. You're told which vaccination center to go to. Most of them run 24/7, so you may get asked to come at 3 in the morning, and you go and you get your vaccination. And then that allows us to have that process. About 500,000 people a day get vaccinated on average. And so every day that 500,000 people more get vaccinated, the country is really coming to a new place. So at Harlaxton, we have been in this circumstance where, as a non-essential business, we are somewhat closed. However, we do have people that come to work. So like, for example, our security gets to come to work because that's essential to our business, as well as our maintenance team. It's a big house that needs a lot of looking after. Luckily for me, this is actually my home address. So I am working from home right now. So I may be the luckiest person in all of England. And what we're doing with our time is we're getting ready for students to come back. So we've created a coronavirus plan, which is on our website if you want to go and see that. And essentially this summer and this fall, when we bring students back, we're looking at single rooms for students. So for those of you not familiar, we have student rooms that usually take 2 students, but we'll have 1 in them. And that one room allows a student to have, both that safety and privacy, but also quarantine space if they need it. Our rooms all have like a basin in them, so a sink. So you'll have your own private space there. And then we'll have timings on the showers outside in the hallways that are shared. We have created lots of safety plans. We've zoned the manor, so we'll have open zones and closed zones, so our team can get in and do the maintenance and cleaning that they want and need to do. And our teams can feel really safe about having, that opportunity to mix or not mix with our students. In addition, we'll have masking rules, and we have social distancing rules here. So here it's 2 meters, and so we actually have a 2-meter stick we walk around with, and we like poke each other with, so we stay apart from each other. So that's been a source of a lot of conversation. So we measured all of our classrooms. We have enhanced cleaning techniques, and we have that ability to really have students here in a really safe way, but still obviously having a great Harlaxton experience. So we expect by this summer that travel will be more available to students, and we always encourage students to travel within the UK. So we do expect for students to have freedom of travel on trains. We can still ride the trains when lockdown's over. You do it with your mask and it's reduced capacity. So we expect to have back to students traveling within the UK, so going to Scotland, going to London, potentially going to Wales, Lake District, York, Cambridge, all those great places. Europe is still a question for us. We're not sure what those rules will look like because they're set by a European Union, which many of you will know that the UK is no longer a part of. So in terms of how things are working here at Harlaxton, we're looking at these rules in the country and what we've seen happening. We've sort of created a really good plan for our students to feel safe and healthy here. And we are just counting the days until students come back. We were laughing about it today because we certainly need people in these hallways and people here making and creating and studying and learning. I'm sure you all are very excited to go to Harlaxton. So tonight we have something really special for you. We have sent along a video, so I believe we're going to see that here in just a moment, and hopefully it transports you here and lets you see the manor. So perhaps we can play the video and then we can see if there are any questions.
It's an amazing building, absolutely, totally amazing. I've lived here 40 years and I look at it every day and it's still totally amazing to me.
I never got tired of the first peek of the manor as we came up the drive. The building itself has such a backstory.
For me, it's pulling up to the manor and coming to the realization this is my home for the next 4 months.
Those moments seared into your senses because they were so new, so subtly transformative.
I still regularly dream that I've just arrived at the manor and I have my whole semester ahead of me.
This space being so beautiful and so tranquil gives students that space to sit and think about who they want to be.
I would sit in the Great Hall and simply marvel at the architecture.
Being able to do that just opens up your mind a little bit to other opportunities that you might never ever have thought about.
So big and majestic. It's hard to have just one favorite place. Your view of life will change. It's like going from swimming in a pool to swimming in the ocean.
One of my favorite activities was wandering the grounds with my camera. I just loved it.
They echo for decades in places you call home, even as you realize home isn't so much a place, but time that helped you grow profoundly?
Thank you. Holly, I hope, come on in and join me. There you are. Oh, I love it. You know, it. I was very fortunate to spend 5 years of my life living in Britain, and every time I see that video, it brings me back, and to working and spending time with students, traveling around that beautiful, beautiful country. The islands, everything, the Lake District, way up north into the Highlands of Scotland and out to Cornwall and the whole bit. It's such a remarkable place, and Harlaxton is such a great place to explore the country from. I'm reminded, as we're in the midst of a pandemic, of a previous pandemic and the role that Grantham played in that, being a place where a young mathematician retired home from Oxford, Sir Isaac Newton, and an apple fell on his head. And not only did he develop the foundation of calculus called fluxions, but he also helped to define gravity and change the course of our understanding of science and physics and everything else, for centuries. And it happened right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of my absolute favorite questions because I've been interviewed on the news here. I've been interviewed by BBC Drive Time several times asking me what it's like to be here on my own in a pandemic. So as I said before, I live here now. So the thing that I continually think of and remind myself is that I'm not the only person in history that's done this, right? The manor was here in 1918, and someone was living here in 1918. And so quite often, so I spent a lot of time in the archives looking. So John Pearson Sherwin Gregory was here at that time, and he was here with a small team of about 6 staff members. So very similar to the maintenance and the guys who come in during the day. It's about the number of people I see. And this idea has been so intriguing to me. Actually, University of Loughborough has taken it on a student group and they're writing a play about it. So about how my life and his life intersect in pandemics in the manor.
That is so cool. That is really cool. I can't wait to see that play. That's great. That's great. So I'm curious, have you encountered any kind of discrimination in the UK? Being an American, are people afraid? Oh my gosh, there's an American, I'm going to catch COVID. I mean, I'm sure they know you, but how does it feel being right now in lockdown in the UK as an American?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Since I've been in the country, which I arrived here last August, I've actually been in lockdown 3 times.
Wow.
So somewhat. So the first lockdown I count is the quarantine. At that time, it was 14 days. And so I did a 14-day solitary quarantine to enter the country. After that, we had a second lockdown on October 31st. So our Halloween surprise from the Prime Minister was a 1-month lockdown. So we did an entire month of November. And in December, actually, on my birthday, we reopened, which was fantastic. I could get a haircut. And then we were told again at Christmas we were locking down again. So in terms of seeing people, I think the fact that we at the time were required to do the 14-day quarantine meant that people knew you had gone through that process, and so people weren't particularly scared of you. I found more people apologize to me saying, oh, well, I've been out and about, you've been in quarantine, I don't want to put you in danger. And then we've done so many lockdowns now that we haven't really we haven't really been out and about. But before lockdown, when I would get my hair cut, I would take questions from everyone in the salon. What's it like in America? What's the vaccination situation? How is it being handled? Are people taking it seriously? So I always had a lot of conversation with people asking me those questions. Um, and of course, it's so different state by state, and it's almost impossible to explain that to someone that there's not a national response. We all don't get letters from someone. We don't queue and go at our time in the States. And so that's been a real opportunity to discuss those differences in culture and how things operate. So yeah, a lot of conversation around that.
You know, it is so fascinating how, and we have these incredible um, elements of technology at our disposal to have conversations. I mean, like, I feel like I'm in the same room with you, you know, to have conversations like this and to be comparing different ways that people are responding, you know, to the pandemic. And you know, in the United States, well, all over the world, I think it's shown, you know, systems and structures and things that work, and exposed things that are on very flimsy, thin ice, let's say, and sometimes they break. You know, the United Kingdom has a national health system. We have a collection of different health businesses, you know, that work great for people, you know, who need treatment and that. But in terms of working as a system, it's been a real challenge for us here. Will you be exploring some of these things with our students when they get to Britain, when they return to Harlaxton?
Absolutely. So one of the things we're really excited about is that one of our beloved British faculty members, Dr. David Green, he's a medievalist, and he is someone who students just rave about taking his classes. He's actually developed a new course, and it's called Apocalypse Then. So
Awesome.
it's plagues from the 14th century onward. So the opportunity to have those conversations about what this has looked like through history, and a long history with plagues in the UK. So we certainly have looked at our curriculum, and we've said, you know, how can we provide opportunities for students to really think about this place and this moment in time. The play I mentioned from Loughborough will be actually premiered here in our summer session, and then ultimately we hope to have it back in the autumn session, and those students will come and perform it, as well as the Apocalypse Then class from our professor, Dr. David Green. And then, of course, our British Studies class, right? It starts, the first slide says the beginning of time. It really says that. And then the last slide always changes. So it's always what's happening in this very current climate. So we'll be addressing that through historical perspectives, literature perspectives, you know, British perspectives with our British faculty. So that will be an amazing time. We used to end with, you know, it's Brexit, what's going to happen. Now we're ending with what happens now with coronavirus and onward. So the curriculum's been, the faculty are really excited actually to talk about it and update classes. And they were the ones that came and pitched Apocalypse Then to me. And I'm ready to take the class. I think it sounds fascinating.
That sounds so cool. And that, you know, that's one of the super special things about study abroad, and especially being able to study abroad. I mean, I think it's really important to study abroad in any country. But when you can study abroad in a country where you can speak the language, and then then it becomes very apparent. You may have the same word for something, but the thing that gets you to that word or out of that word is completely different. And that certainly is the way it is between the United States and the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I think people often think because we can communicate that we're kind of the same culture, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. So I can attest to that. I went to university in the UK. I taught in the UK for about 10 years. My husband's British, and there are times in which and we've lived both in the States and in the UK, and there's times when just that communication, we have to stop and say, like, what exactly did you mean by that? I understood the word, but I don't understand the meaning. And in fact, we were in a situation today. We had a gentleman come in. He was coming for a job interview, actually, which we still can legally do. And I looked at his CV and I said, I don't know in a British context if this is a good CV or a bad CV. I think it's a good CV, but I don't know what you all think. And they kind of explained to me the things on it that they liked a lot. So it is so vastly different. I think the mistake people make is thinking it's the same because we can talk to each other.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a big challenge. So I want to shift gears here a little bit and get back to the travel aspect, because certainly, um, one thing that is very important, an important component of every study abroad program, and certainly when I visited WKU students at Harlaxton, that was no exception. Pretty much every weekend, they go someplace, right? And now, if you're in the United States, so the first thing, we're in the United States and we want to go abroad, we get our passport. We're going to start looking at vaccination passports, right? Something, some evidence. Maybe it's a card or something that you've had the vaccination, which will presumably facilitate travel to certain places. So we need to make sure that we check that, what is required for entry. Now, I've traveled extensively all over the world. I have a yellow card. I travel with that regularly when I go to Africa and some other places so that I'm allowed into the country. I can prove I don't have yellow fever. But that's going to change, I think. Now pretty much everywhere we're probably going to have that visa, or rather that vaccination certificate. Now, Americans, before they travel, we've always recommended, and now we are going to absolutely insist, that they go to travel.state.gov, which is the United States State Department's sort of information for American travelers going abroad. Bryson, can you call that up? We'll get back to it when he can. But the State Department has 3 levels of, or pardon me, has 4 levels of warnings about travel. Level 1 is proceed with normal cautions. Level 2 is have additional caution, meaning now most of Europe was level 1 or level 2. The United Kingdom has been level 2. And then level 3 is, there we go, avoid unnecessary travel. And level 4 is do not travel. And so currently, pretty much the entire world is level 3, which is avoid non-essential travel. And we're hoping that's going to go down. It probably won't go down for a while. WKU's travel policy says that students may not travel in level 3 or level 4. That level 1, level 2, we're good. So that's the U.S. system, and so each country is going to be a little bit different. And then there's also country-specific information, what to look out for in that, things to worry about in that country. Back in the 90s, when I was in the UK, there was a lot of IRA terrorism, concerns that were going on. And so, we did a lot to be prepared for that. Obviously, this is quite different from that. And fortunately, that has largely, gone away with the Good Friday agreements. But Holly, can you tell us, is there, does the Foreign Office, or is there some sort of a domestic office that talks about and makes recommendations to UK travelers about traveling and what to expect returning home and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so right now with the lockdown, we're actually not allowed to travel. So all travel outside the country is banned. So unless you actually file paperwork, you're not allowed to go anywhere outside the country. And that paperwork has to be approved. So we had a staff member whose partner, her father died in the Czech Republic. And so she was allowed to travel. But right now we have a complete ban on traveling. So at this particular point in time, we're not allowed to actually leave the island. So we're all here locked in fate together. But the good news is that the road map that the Prime Minister brought out last night shows that by May 17th, we should be able to travel internationally again. And so we're all busily booking our holidays and looking forward to that time again. So currently, to enter the UK, you have to have a negative COVID test 72 hours before you board a flight into the UK. And before you come in, you have to prepay a package of 2 tests, one on the 2nd day and one on the 8th day. And you have to complete a 10-day quarantine. So we're prepared for this at the Manor. You can complete the quarantine here. And the testing, you actually have to prearrange it and purchase it before you leave the US. They tell you how to do it on the website as you fill in all the forms. And so at that point, after 10 days with 2 negative tests, you're out of quarantine and can move freely within public health guidance, so masking, social distancing. After that point, to return to the United States, as you well know, you have to have a negative test 72 hours before you board a flight. So there are a lot of testing requirements. Right now, the vaccine passport is being talked about heavily here, but not implemented, as there are questions about how we would do that. And currently, as you know, US passport holders are not able to enter most countries in Europe. We, even from the UK, can't enter countries like France. They have kind of a complete travel ban on at the moment. But we're all hopeful that by the summer, those will be lifted. We do believe students coming from the summer onward will have free movement around the UK, which, as you said, is the most beautiful place. You could spend lots of time here. We think our students will have amazing time. Our summer program comes with a rail pass. So what would be better than coming and spending the summer here and riding the rails and seeing the whole, well, you could see lots of different countries in that case, going to Scotland and to Wales and Northern Ireland. So we're hopeful that we certainly will be back having our students travel. We know it's a big part of the experience, and we want them to have that experience. In fact, we were joking that Sunday nights are just not the same. We usually wait for them to come back, and it's just not the same right now.
Wow. Yeah, I can't, we'll be back. We can't wait to get back. So we do have some questions, Holly, that students and others are asking. So let's go ahead and look at those. So Wesley Ann Watkins asks, what resources are there for American students who are hoping to study abroad soon as far as travel warnings? And I'll start to tackle that one, Wesley Ann. And that would be the first place to go is to travel.state.gov, and then look for the country that you want to travel to and any other countries that you want to travel to find out exactly what their travel requirements are, what travel restrictions they may have, and how you can go to prepare. I would also recommend when you book a flight that you pay very, very close attention to what the airline has. And, as we've seen throughout the pandemic, things change on like a daily basis, sometimes on an hourly basis. And so it's really, really important. You might go and check, so you're all excited. You want to go to Harlaxton in the fall. You book a flight, you register to go to Harlaxton, get all your courses sorted out and everything, you're ready to roll. Well, I checked back in February and I checked again in March. You're going to also have to check again in July and August and September because, things are going to change. Hopefully they're going to be loosened instead of tightened, but we just don't know. Another big concern, and one of the nice things about traveling to Britain, there are a lot of direct flights to the UK. The London, New York, London, US is like the most traveled international route on the planet. So it's quite easy to get there direct from Nashville, for example. And so it's really important that we, if we're traveling other places, every intermediate stop, we need to make sure that we're complying with those things. So, Holly, do you have other things that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just add that the Harlaxton website has a great COVID-19 section on it that's updated all the time. And you'll see it at the very front of our website. You see beautiful pictures of the manor, and above it, a banner. And then also, please know that with Harlaxton, you also have a set of advisors. They're actually US based, and they keep up with you about everything. You can ask questions. They'll let you know about any changing travel requirements into the UK. So you would have a team there that I've talked to them twice today. So we literally talk all of the time and make sure that you have the information you need so that you and your family can feel safe in coming here.
Perfect. Great. Yeah. So every place you go, look at what they're saying about COVID. So Bryson Keltner, I think, has a question for you, Holly. For the most part, are people taking COVID restrictions seriously in the UK? Do you see some opposition to restrictions as some oppose them in the USA?
Yeah, thanks, Bryson. So I do think that people take it very seriously here. And one reason is the conversation we were having earlier about the National Health Service, so the NHS, National Health Service. And that's a medical service that everyone in the UK receives their care from. So any threat to the NHS, to the National Health Service, is considered sort of very personal in the feelings of British people. So the NHS hospitals have been quite full, especially in London. They haven't been full here. Our hospital's still really operational in Grantham. But in places, they're very pressed for space and they've worked very hard. And so people in the UK find it a duty to protect the NHS. In fact, that's what our COVID signs say. Our COVID signs say, protect the NHS, and our COVID signs say, thank you, NHS. So we don't have so the question isn't necessarily about, do you believe in COVID? Do you not believe in COVID? Do you believe in masks or not? The question is always sort of, we are united in ensuring that the NHS stays healthy and strong. And so what we need to do for the NHS is important. So you don't see the pushback. You don't see people breaking the rules. And Britain's also a pretty rule-based society compared to the US. And so we often talk about, even here at the manor, if something happens, we'll question people, that's against the rules, or don't do that, it's against the rules, or we carry our meter sticks, don't break the rules. So I think that has an advantage in the way COVID has been worked through here.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Other questions? Okay, well, let me invite my colleague, Diana Howard, to join us to talk a little bit about, we have many different ways that WKU students can study abroad. They can go abroad for a semester, or if they're Gatton students, during the summer, or during the summer, with Harlaxton. We have other partners who we work with around the world that our students enroll in them. But we also work very closely with our faculty and who take a Western Kentucky course abroad with a group of students to someplace, Harlaxton or other places. And Diana Howard is one of my colleagues who works very, very closely with our faculty to organize these programs. So Diana, can you talk to us a little bit about how we are managing our faculty-led study abroad programs?
Yes. I just want to say, we are eager to travel again. We are all ready. So with our faculty-led programs, with the announcement of the vaccines coming out in December timeframe, we met with faculty to kind of evaluate their program to see if we could push it further into the summer. Ideally, we tried to push them to late June into July, just to open up more opportunity for success of those programs running. In January, we decided that we could look at each program and the months individually and kind of have a waterfall approach to determining if the programs would be able to run or not. So January 15th, we looked at programs that would potentially go out in May to see where they were running. We checked with all of the resources you talked about before, the CDC, the State Department. We'd look at the actual embassy web pages. And so we determined that the May programs we were not going to run those. With the waterfall approach, we took February 15th as our date to look at the June programs, and then March 15th will be the date to look at our July programs to see if we can run those programs. So when February 15th rolled around, once again, we looked at all of our resources in our toolbox and determined that we would not run the June programs. And we're optimistically hopeful that July will run. I don't know. It remains to be seen because, like you said, it changes daily. So
yeah, every day. Yeah, it's, you know, we don't have a crystal ball. We, we work off of, the same information that everyone else, but we dig in very, very deep, just to make sure that we don't want anybody to get stuck, right? We don't want, to have to stop a program in the middle and bring people back and try to figure out how to make that work. That was a very complicated process last spring.
And the safety of our faculty and our students are first. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate that. Now, I know that WKU faculty have been very dedicated and committed to running programs, some of them, for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
How are they feeling about this? What's your sense of where the faculty are?
They're the ones that I work with. They're disappointed, but they realize, we all are living in this pandemic together, and we know that the reality is it's just not quite safe to travel yet. So most of the faculty that I work with, they're just eager to just get that program going for summer 2022.
They certainly are. Boy, and we are eager to be there with them.
Right.
We are there with them. We are, and so much falls on the shoulders of a faculty member when they're taking students abroad, right? They have to be thinking, obviously they're thinking about the course and making the arrangements, making sure that everybody's showing up to get on the bus or get off the bus or, go through the museum or whatever. But then they also have this additional layer of making sure that everybody's healthy and making sure that everybody gets home in one piece, not to mention just teaching the course. So what kind of things do we do to help prepare them?
Well, most of them have been, doing this for quite a few years, but we do, every faculty that travels abroad will have an extensive emergency action plan. We talk to them about maybe health, like how to handle, how to know where the hospitals are, how to handle all kinds of issues that might come up. Also, we're available when they're traveling abroad. We're still, 24/7. We're available for them. If they need anything, they have us as a resource.
That's great. It takes a team, right? It takes a team to make it work. Now, do people have insurance?
Absolutely. Every student and faculty will have international insurance through our office. So yes, absolutely.
Great. Well, good. I understand we have a question from a parent. Johnny Bergman asks us, what advice do you have for parents who are concerned about letting their students study abroad? Diana, do you want to tackle that one? We'll bring in Holly, and I'll give a crack at it too, as both, as someone who's been involved in study abroad for 30 years and is a parent.
Right. Well, I am a parent, and I'm gonna double check too. Like if my child is gonna be traveling abroad, you better believe I'm gonna check the CDC, the State Department, and the embassy in the country as well. Like I'm gonna see what the resources are and just make sure that my child is safe. So just kind of, and then if a parent has any questions, again, our office is available and open, and we're here as a resource.
Great. So you can come to us, first of all, if you have questions. We have a full staff who is very eager, to respond to your questions, and we'll do so very honestly. Absolutely, we want to get your son or daughter abroad, but boy, we want to make sure that every member of the WKU community is safe. So Holly, from your perspective, as someone who is taking over sort of in loco parentis of students while they're studying in the United Kingdom, what kinds of words do you have for parents?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And I think for one, you need to, really understand and know the program your students are going to. When your students come to Harlaxton, your children become my children, and we want you to have that trust. And if you have a problem, we're not a big company. You call me. Like, I'm the person that answers the phone, and I'm the person that helps you. So I think, really look at that program and really see how long have they been in operation. We've been here 50 years. Who is the person I would call? And in this case, you would call me directly and I would help you. And I think it's really important for you to have that level of security and that level of feeling that you have that person there and that program there that has your back. There's amazing programs out there. WKU only works with the best, and I can say that because we're one of your partners. So WKU is never going to send you on a program that wouldn't have that backup. But just to have that extra level of feeling and security, I think, just like Dan said, do your homework, know who it is you call. Lots of things. I do parent webinars all the time for Harlaxton parents. And so most all of the parents know me before their students come. And then when they pick up the phone, it's like talking to a friend, and it's, oh, my student doesn't, has a problem in their room or their roommate or the food, or there's an issue. Then we know each other. It's not like you're calling a strange country out of the blue to someone you don't know. So I would say that do your homework, let WKU help guide you to those programs that they feel good about, because they are experts in this.
So, and thank you, Holly. I appreciate that, and it's nice knowing that you're at the other end of the phone. I hope you can get sleep. Having been at all ends of that phone with, when my daughter was studying in Columbia, and oh my goodness, I can't tell you how many times I've spoken with parents at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. When I was living in Britain and then in other places, to address some issue that had been going on, or a concern that had been going on with their students. So just a couple things. And, I regularly travel about 100,000 miles a year. I haven't been on a plane in a year now. And I've traveled extensively on every continent on the planet except Antarctica. In places that, from, places that literally are war zones, to places that are so extraordinarily safe they don't even have locks on the doors. And just to kind of give some of the ways that I would approach this. First, having the opportunity to experience another culture is one of the most important learning opportunities that any student can have. And there are so many different ways that they can have them. And studying abroad is one very deep, rich way to do it. But there are a lot of ways that it can be done. And we're doing all kinds of things to make those accessible to students. We want them to travel, but we want them to travel when it's safe. So, when the State Department lowers the travel restriction from a level 3 to a level 2, we're going to start opening up our doors, and we're going to pay very close attention to how it is that we're encouraging students to travel and what kinds of things they need to do, how to prepare. Of parents, I would ask you this. First, if you have questions, please, please, please ask. Ask Diana, ask Holly, ask myself. We are here to serve you and your student. Second, I would encourage you to take an interest in the students' health and security, not just by sort of nagging them, which I really understand as a parent, but going through the materials with them, right? So you're familiar and they're familiar. You can ask them questions about, oh, well, it says here you've got to do this with your insurance. Have you done that? Have you registered yet in the State Department STEP program? things like that. What are you going to do? Which airport are you flying through? What are you going to do here? What are you going to do there? Just so that that they've thought about it. And also, when you hear their response, it will give you a certain level of comfort. And frankly, if you don't hear a response that you feel comfortable with, you can ask them more questions or seek out some of the information on your own. It is very good to know their health insurance information, where they're staying. The health insurance provider that we use gives a list of hospitals that are in close proximity to wherever it is that you can look at where they're living and find a nearby hospital. So where the healthcare facilities are. So there's a lot of ways to empower your own knowledge through that material. But then also, encourage your student to take full advantage of their experience abroad. And quite frankly, yeah, of course I'm concerned about COVID, but my biggest concern is always students making bad decisions. So prepare them with the ability to make good decisions. Know when to stop drinking alcohol or not drink alcohol. Make sure that they keep it in their head that they're safer walking down the street with one other person than they are walking down the street alone at night, regardless of where they are. But really basic, simple things, those are the things that I think are of the biggest concern. Because it's when people start making bad decisions that there can be, a cascade of negative consequences to that. So by being well informed, you're giving yourself the tools to make good decisions and help your student make those really good decisions. And we are here available to you to help give you that kind of information and point you in the direction that you need. And, please, if we say, we don't feel it's safe to travel, please don't give us a hard time about that. We're really doing our best. And I can tell you, there is no one who is more committed to getting every single WKU student off the hill and into the world than myself and Diana and Holly and the rest of our team at Western Kentucky University. We want them to go out and have these experiences, but we want them to be safe. Any other, Holly, Diana, do you have any other comments that you would like to make?
I would just like to say I completely agree. Harlaxton is missing her students. So we always refer to the manor as a she, and she needs people back. She needs students back, but we're not willing to do it until it's safe and until it's right. So please know that we're looking out for you as well. Please know that all of you are welcome in Harlaxton as soon as the world opens and peace returns to us all. And I just gratitude for WKU for letting us come into your meeting. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and just a quick addition, we are all so ready to travel again. And I can't wait. I can't wait to get students abroad again. And even in the United States, just out and going when it's safe. So thank you. Thank you, Holly and John. Thank you for this. Yeah.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you for your hard work that you do with our faculty and our students. Holly, thank you. And please extend my warmest wishes to your colleagues at Harlaxton. And thank you for all that you do for our Western Kentucky students.
You're most welcome. We love them. So we're ready to see them back here running around the manor. We said the other day, we need some hijinks back. We need to figure out how you got in some room or what you did. So we need some hijinks back here in the manor.
Yeah, great. Well, we can't wait to send them. So, and everyone, please, you have our information. Thank you very much for joining us today. We hope that this has been helpful. We've got some other really good global learning forums coming up, including a couple where we're going to talk about sustainability. We'll be talking with a professor from the Netherlands who studies sustainability. One of the big things is that we've had a dramatic drop in the number of miles that our students have been flying as a result of COVID. So we'll be looking at the impact on the environment of our study abroad program and kind of weighing, what the positives and the negatives and how all those things interact. So again, I want to thank everyone, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Bye. Have a great evening. Bye.